Okay, let's begin.
Wonderful. How do we begin?
We've begun. How are you?
I am very well. How are you?
I'm very good too. So we've we met randomly. I got an email from your PR firm, I believe,
That's right.
and that's my cat. Her
I love it.
like, oh, now that the recording's begun, let me be a part of the show.
Of course.
So I got an email from your PR firm, and we instantly connected over a half an hour, 40-minute call,
We did
and then
about 45 minutes. Yeah. Yeah.
and here we are. So nice. So this is 11, and she's the co-host of this podcast. It's
It seems so. I love it. I love having the feline energy.
yeah, yeah. I heard somewhere recently from I don't remember who said it, but they said, and like this was a religious teacher, and he said, "I've learned everything that there is to learn from cats."
Mm.
He said that yeah, everything that there is to learn, I've learned from cats because the
Right.
moment the cat is stressed, it'll run and hide, and it will not allow to stay it won't allow itself to stay in a stressful scenario. And why I share this is because this is my experience with the four cats and the many cats that we look after.
Right.
But the four cats we have at home and maybe like around 10 cats that we look after in our neighborhood. But also because this sort of is a segue into a topic,
Yes.
would you introduce the topic?
We're going to be speaking about a number of things this evening and this
Yeah.
morning.
Yeah.
Where we're going to begin, we're going to jump into what is illness
Yeah.
and why is illness.
Yeah. Yeah.
In my experience of helping people heal and my own healing journey as a healer,
Mhm.
as a mother, as a woman, as a person, you cannot achieve deep and permanent healing without the spiritual journey.
I agree.
And so then illness becomes part of the spiritual journey.
Mm. Mm. Yeah.
And
Yeah. But yeah.
and where the healing comes from is when we start to peel back the layers of what is illness and why is illness? Why do we have illness? When
Yeah.
we look at the physical experience of illness or injury, because
Mhm.
it's the one that we feel the most prominently. But
Mhm.
when we move below that, we find the emotional reason for the
Yeah.
illness or the injury.
Yeah. Yeah. So, illness is also disease, and
Disease, disease, illness, injury.
yeah. So, because how I have understood this in teaching myself about the spiritual healing path and spiritual, even the path of sharing my spiritual learnings with others, is that we can look at disease as dis-ease.
Hmm.
So now that I have left ease, now that I'm not in my feline energy anymore, I
Right.
am dis-ease.
Yes.
And that lack of comfort that I put myself in. And that's
Hmm.
where we come back to the why of the illness, right?
Hmm.
Why do we put ourselves in this lack of comfort? And one of the things that you said, I've never reflected upon it this way, that the illness itself is becomes sort of the cause for us, if we choose to go on our spiritual healing journey.
Hmm.
Uh, when we do it spiritually, it solves it once and for all, doesn't it?
It does. That is where deep and permanent healing comes from. And in Western medicine, which is my background is not in Western medicine, but I live in Western medicine because I live in Canada. I live in the West. We're brought up to believe, we're taught that illness is outside of our control, that
Mm-hmm.
we have no responsibility to it,
Mm-hmm.
and that the only cure for it is to treat the symptoms.
Yeah, yeah.
Even if
That's a
that
very
means the symptoms are never going to go away. You just take a pill for the rest of your life to manage the symptoms, not even treat the symptoms, but manage the
just
symptoms.
yeah, that's a very band-aid solution.
Hmm.
You
Absolutely.
know, This is reminding me of a very random incident that I went through with one of the cats. And I'll look it up and let's see where we go from there. We look after a lot of strays, and sometimes when the strays get massively injured, we have a separate room for them where we look after them, especially within the house. And we had one guy called Flame. We named him Flame, and he had been attacked by a bigger alpha cat, and he had these huge bruises on his back. So he had been scratched completely. There was probably bite marks, and we basically at the surface level managed his symptoms twice. And what would happen is that the same marks, the same wounds, as if he had been scratched that day, would reappear completely. And what was fascinating to us was because he was not meeting another cat in that. So for 1.5 months, we were treating and we were putting ointment on his wounds. And suddenly one day we saw the wound had reappeared. So we thought, oh, okay, silly guy, he's running around the room and injuring himself, and he's, gotten his scab off. But we couldn't make sense of why the wound and the bite marks had reappeared. So we treated him again. When this happened a second time, we said, okay, he needs to be taken to like a proper vet, because he had been taken to a vet in the beginning. And then we were just following the vet's instructions. And we went to the vet with this particular piece of information. We went to our trusted vet this time. And she told us that because the wound had not been treated with proper healing from the cause of it, and this was still applying Western medicine, but I'm trying to get to the point of healing the cause of the issue rather than just trying to make it look good on top with some plastic solution. The wounds were reappearing. The actual wound, the actual bite marks were reappearing. And that's what essentially you and I are talking about, right? Like when you just put a band-aid on something, it will come back around. Whatever that root cause still exists. So the different branches of that disease, illness, are going to keep appearing and come back even more reinforced the next time.
Yes.
It may not look like a one-day headache that you get at the end of the day. It may turn into a migraine. It may not look like a migraine. It may turn into a tumor, but it's going to always keep coming back.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what has to change? What has to change so that it doesn't keep coming back? Right? Story has to be healed.
The story has to be healed.
Story has to be healed. The relationship that we have with the story that we're telling about the things that occur to us in our lives, that happen to us in our lives, that holds the energy of the event. And when that happens, we get stuck in the energy of the event, and we could be fine for a decade or two. There could be no reoccurrence of the scratches or the bite marks until something triggers the same experience that was what we had in the first place. And then it flares up again, right? So when the story is healed, the relationship with our story is healed, we no longer have a need for the illness or the injury or the disease. We don't need it any longer. So one of the questions that I hope to get to with my clients, if a client is coming to me with an illness or a disease, they've got cancer or they've got Alzheimer's or they've got Parkinson's or whatever, chronic inflammation, I want to get to the point in my relationship with them where I can ask them, how do you benefit from this illness or disease? What is the benefit to you? And that is not a question that people are used to hearing, nor is it a question that they want to answer.
Yeah.
Because they've never had to think of it like that.
Yeah. Because the mind obviously goes and says, why do you think I'm benefiting from this? I am suffering and I'm having to take pills and I'm not doing my best in my life and I'm not getting to live my life fully, right? So it sounds like such a counterintuitive question, but it is like bang on. It's the right question to ask. The way I phrase a similar question with my clients is, which part of you benefits? So it's the same question.
Right.
But and the way you put it, healing the story, is because we've fragmented ourselves. And because the whole, the one, and we've never had a discussion about how we look at the whole, the one, or even what words we use for this. So please jump at any point and tell me how you think about this.
Right.
But that is a being or an idea or an entity of wellness. There is no disease in an ideal world where everybody is safe, everybody is secure, everybody is literally on earth to have a good time.
Right.
So how do you phrase this for your clients or for yourself?
The idea of the wholeness of the system. Yeah. So
why would we, I'll probably put a question there also, because why would somebody who is a believer of Western medicine, who understands that patching up the symptoms, because there's science behind it, is all that is needed, why would they believe that I can go on a spiritual healing journey and do some journaling maybe, or do some reflection, do some chanting? Because all of the non-traditional healers like us have our own ways and our own systems. Listen to tarot cards, listen to sit down and do meditation, and listen to this inner voice. Why would I do all of this? Why would that logically heal me? It probably would raise a question that that's not even possible, right?
It would definitely raise the question. And I think in much of Western medicine, there is a belief that none of this that you and I do is of any value. It's complete woohoo. It's gibberish and it's ridiculous, and don't even go there.
Yeah.
But what I find really interesting is that if I can get a person curious, even just give them permission for them to open their minds just a little bit, once that crack is opened a little bit, it's amazing how much light can shine in. Yes. So if I'm speaking to a mainstream doctor, and let's say I'm advocating for one of my clients who's trying to navigate the medical system, and the doctor is saying to her, you've got gout. This is what you've got. It's gout, and here's a pill, and you're going to be on this pill for the rest of your life as a preventative. And I say, well, hang on, doctor. We know that gout flares up with the long-term use of certain types of foods, fatty foods, high protein foods, alcohol, red meats, things like this. But there's a lot of research that tells us that gout is diet related.
Yeah.
And the doctor says to me, well, I mean, that might be, but we've got medication, so she doesn't have to worry. Your client doesn't have to worry about changing her diet. We'll just do the medication.
Yeah.
If I can then say to that doctor, would you be willing to consider the possibility that diet could be a factor? Just consider it. If the doctor stops for a moment, then I know they've already started considering it.
Correct.
The brain loves an invitation. The brain loves an invitation to think about things. So if I say those words, would you consider the possibility? He or she, they're immediately considering the possibility. Right?
Right.
And then they go home thinking about it. And the next thing you know, they're advocating good, proper diets to their clients. I don't know, but
yeah. Or at least having the curiosity to look at their own symptoms, which they probably have in their life in a more holistic way. I feel that's the correct word for the work that we do. It's more holistic rather than, okay, this is the science and these are the pills and these are the chemicals, and we put them in our body, which allows us to just, like you said before we started this podcast, manage the symptoms rather than heal them in any way.
Right. Right.
Yeah. I'll rephrase the question I was trying to ask, because I want to come back to it. And here, this is where maybe some of my Eastern knowledge comes into the conversation, or I'm sure you yourself, because you talked about the chakra system. So it's something that you're definitely aware of. But there's the scene, there's the physical body, and there's the manifested world that we all have. And therefore also the manifested illnesses that we have, and which is also something you put across very beautifully before the podcast started, was that illness is outside of our control, right? So because we only tend to notice illness or disease when it turns up in our physical reality.
Yeah.
But there the root cause. There is the emotional cause. There is the story that needs to be healed at the back of it.
Right.
But even if we go further back, because if there is a story to be healed, there has to be a energy that does heal the story, right? Like there has to be goodness. So, okay, the story is the bad part. There's the toxic part that needs to be healed. But does there need to be a support? And do we need to believe in this? And maybe I'm going a little off from where we started, but we'll just see where this goes.
That's okay.
There has to be an energy system that is supporting when I'm willing to heal my story. And what I want to know from you, because you and I've chatted very less, is, and because this will bring about different healers that haven't spoken much to each other, but somehow we're arriving at the same conclusion. Maybe our vocabulary around that conclusion is different. Is how do you think of this energy that supports your healing journey?
Well, I don't think that I don't think it's a separate thing from the physical being. Right? We don't stop at our skin.
Yes. Yeah.
So we're in constant communication with the energy around us, the ether, whatever you want to call it. You can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't taste it, but it's there. We can see it. Some people can see it with the naked eye, some people can see it with machinery, but we can see it. We are electromagnetic beings.
Yeah.
So that these energy systems, the way that I have learned it and the way that I've experienced it is that when, let's say, a traumatic event shows up in your life, you were in a car accident, or you get thrown off your bicycle, or someone comes up behind you and grabs your purse, whatever it is, that event, the energy of that event, your reaction to it, your shock, is held in your energy field, your aura. Right. People know it as, and that's a very simplified version of it, but let's just call it your aura. It's held there. And then if the event is specific to an area of your human experience, the way that it's held in your body with the chakra system, it's going to enter the body, the physical body, through that chakra. So it starts in the energy field. If it's not that's the right, like if it's not healed or acknowledged or dealt with immediately after the event, not healing that happens, we hold on to it, and it will eventually move into our physical body, and it will show up as an ache or a pain. In some part, might be indigestion. If it's our solar plexus where we're holding it, it could be endometriosis if it's our root chakra that's holding it. That's where it will stay and manifest at the physical level. And once it's in the physical level, we are made aware of it because of the discomfort that our physical body is feeling. And our physical body is just trying to get our attention. So that we will do the work required to relieve ourselves of the discomfort.
Correct. So what we're essentially saying is that there is an energy that we cannot see, that we cannot hear, that we cannot taste, that we cannot smell. And believing in something like that is also not woo-woo. It exists. It exists. It's real. It's obvious. And ignoring that at this point of even where science has gotten to is basically just choosing to not look at something that's obviously there, right? Like we eat food and that becomes us.
Right.
And we meet somebody and we feel drained or we feel excited. So we know that it's not just physical, our realities, not just see it physical, not just touch it physical, but beyond what we see is like the final projection is the completion, is the now reality. But there is so much that is in the background, like our physical universe itself is 1% physical or maybe 2%, like a very small portion of it physical and most of it not physical. Because while to you and me, this may be the most obvious part, I know a lot of people, and this is even in India, where faith and God and religion and Ayurveda and yoga is so big. But then I have friends and people that tell me, I don't believe in anything that is outside of science, and I don't believe in anything that is outside of my really physical manifested experience. And that's shocking to me because of how obvious the non-physical, I mean, I know you said that it's not outside of physical, but the non-see it, taste it, touch it physical is.
Right. So I had a gentleman once say to me when I was giving a talk, he said, he didn't believe in energy. He didn't believe in energy, which I said, well, I don't understand what you mean by that. He says, well, I can't see it. I can't touch it. I can't feel it. I said, okay, but when the wind blows and the tree moves, the tree moving is the result of the wind, but you don't see the wind. You can't see the wind, but you can see the result of the wind. And when you pick up your cell phone and you have a conversation, how do you think that's working? Like, how does that work for you?
Yeah, it blows my mind.
He hadn't thought of it like that before. He just was so determined that energy healing and this talk of energy as something that we experience wasn't true. And he couldn't see analogies in his life that demonstrates the things that he did believe were true that he also couldn't see, touch, feel, or taste. You can't see Wi-Fi, but your cell phone rings. You know, you and I are having this conversation on other sides of the world.
Yeah, literally.
Of course there's energy.
Yeah.
But he was coming from a very common place.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I feel it's also a place of mistrust. It's also a place that, because I know you've tapped into some really good understanding about trust and a chakra, and I want to hear about that, even for myself, but even I think both of our audiences will benefit from understanding trust a little more. Because of course I can trust this pen because it's right here and it's not going to leave me.
And it will probably write.
Yeah, it'll probably write. It seems to have ink. I paid money for it, so it's mine. Right? We've got these systems in place to say what is mine and what is not mine, and therefore we can trust it. But how do you then understand trust I know I made this a little frivolous, but what I'm trying to get to is that how do you have that deeper sense of trust within you? Because the way I look at it, ease is when you are deeply soaked, marinated in trust that everything is really all right. And even this ache that has come up in my hand for whatever reason has come up to draw my attention to it. And now I have the opportunity to heal it. And if I do it completely, so we use the word spiritual, but all we mean is don't do it partly, do it wholly, right? Like we're not trying to, it's not like something esoteric and something woo-hoo again. So if I wholly, this is not something I'll have to deal with again, and I go back into more ease and more ease. So ease, which will then prevent disease from constantly coming up in our life, I feel is a byproduct of being and living in trust, right? Like what is the eventual journey of a healer or of a healed person? Because you don't want to be healing all your life. You want to also get healed and be living like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, you know, you've heard the saying, love makes the world go round. Maybe that saying, love makes the world go round. And love is everything. Love is the highest achievement. It is the highest state of being. It is all of those things. And that is true, but not on its own, not by itself. When love doesn't work, it's because there isn't trust.
So love and trust go hand in hand.
Love and trust go hand in hand.
Never thought about it.
When I received information about the ninth chakra, I was working on a client and I have an energy healing modality that I've created called intuitive energy massage. And it works with the chakra system. It works with the energy field. It works with the physical body, the lymphatic system, the whole bit. And it's a form of intuitive healing. It's very, very dynamic. It's quite amazing. And I teach other people how to do this technique. And so I had a client on the table, someone that I'd worked with for many years. And as I was putting my hands in the various positions up through his chakra system, I put my hand on his heart, and I heard, "You will come back to the heart, but it will be slightly different." And I said, "Okay." And I carried on. I kept doing the treatment. And I came back to the heart, and I felt my hands come from the heart, the center of the heart chakra, up to a space in between the heart and the throat chakra, right where the collarbone is. There's a space, like a little, you can feel the dip. Yeah, that little dip in there. It's just below there in the physical body. And so I put my hands there, and I waited to hear what would show up, which is what happens when I do my work. And I heard the word trust. This is the center of the body where trust is held. I had never heard this before. I'd studied, now in the Western world, our studying of the chakra system is pretty diluted, because the West is really good at diluting things and kind of simplifying things and pulling out the components. So many of the chakra systems I had learned initially were very narrow, which is the 7 chakras. But then I wanted to know more, so I took it further and I did deeper studies, and I learned what I had felt intuitively, is that there are chakra centers everywhere, all over the body. It's part of our nervous system.
Right.
So, but the trust, the 9th chakra, I had never heard of it before. And basically, we come from the crown chakra into the 8th chakra, and then we come back into the physical body, which was totally contrary to a lot of the teachings that I had learned, which was that we ascend and we keep ascending.
Keep ascending.
But when I started to meditate on it, what I intuited, what came to me about the reason that we have to come back into the physical body for the 9th chakra, the trust center of our body, is because while we are human and while we are in these bodies, we have to be in right relationship with them. We have to love our bodies, and we have to trust our bodies. And the only way that we can develop that level of trust is to come back energetically into the physical body.
This is so interesting, because what you're basically telling me is, so my journey has been extremely experiential. So I can tell you that there are the main 7 chakras, and I can name them. But for me, the learning has come from personal experiences. Every single learning that I share with my client has, for me, come from a personal incident that I've gone through. And I've had a fantastic life of learning and healing like that, right since I was a kid. And so I can feel what you're saying. Like, I can feel it. I would not maybe be able to articulate it and name it and have a system for it in the way that these books have. But, and it makes so much sense, right? Because now I'm thinking of, like in India, there's, because there's so much written about the wisdom, a lot of the wisdom texts are from India, and that tell you about the entire systems of getting moksha, getting liberation. And there's generally a misconception around it that would mean that I would leave my physical body and go, and that I don't want to be on earth. And that's a myth that I've been trying to break with some of my long-term clients and work with, and be like, no, being on earth can be fantastic. Like, you don't have to hang around if there's nothing for you to do, and if you actually want to, like, you don't have to hang around the city if you're like, okay, I'm done with my vacation and I want to move on. But while you're here on earth, it doesn't have to be a healing journey. It is a journey, and then you get healed. And that's where I'm coming back into the body bit that you spoke about. So you go out, you transcend, you go, and I guess the other way these are being put in the world around today is you go into the 5D. But then you bring that trust back into your system. And now you're basically living on a new earth, where now suddenly your interactions, the people that you meet, because you have a healed relationship with your own body and with your own mind and with your own emotions.
That's right.
Now, the interactions that you're having outside of you are of a different nature. Because now you're not going to go into your traumas again and again and again. think about how exciting it is. So I know we were talking about illness, but I feel like we've come to the other end of it, but we're saying that when you're healed from your illness, it's not just, oh, good, I won't have that migraine again. But
Right.
it's joy. You come into the real joy of why you were on earth. Like,
Yes,
were you on earth to just work through your problems, or were you on earth to also then experience life and enjoy the fruits of what being in a physical reality could bring you, right?
absolutely. Absolutely.
I'd love to hear how you frame this in your mind and how you think about this and how you even see it in your personal life showing up.
The whole trust and love issue, or
And
not issue,
coming
but
back
the whole of
into your
it.
body. Yeah, coming
Yeah.
back into your body and really enjoying your time on earth rather than enjoying your work and knowing that I can try and heal a client
Mhm.
and but whatever does happen is still from a place, because we never know the outcomes, right? That
Mhm.
depends on the receptivity of the client, that depends on numerous circumstances, and maybe it's not their time to be healed yet also sometimes.
Yes.
uh, they're
That's
not
it.
in that part of the story or journey where they've gotten to a point,
Yeah.
and maybe they've come to you to realize that, oh, I have some other work to do in other areas of my life. I'm sure I've had those experiences.
Yes.
So you've had them, but eventually, what is the point of, so there is a, we're healing and then there's this healing story, but eventually what is the point of it all?
Hmm.
Is it
Hmm.
to then really, basically I'm asking a very existential question, why are we here on earth? Is it just to heal, or is it to heal and then spread that love and joy?
So I don't think we're here just to heal. I think we come into this physical arena because there is the possibility of healing. But what I fundamentally believe is that the reason that we come into these corporeal forms is because
Mm-hmm.
there are things we can only experience as a
Yeah.
soul in the physical form that we cannot experience when we're in the ether. And
Mm-hmm.
one of those things that is so important for us to experience as human beings is privacy. Now, think
Mm-hmm.
about this for a moment.
I've
I
never.
can't read your mind, no matter how psychic I might be. I cannot read your mind. And also, it's none of my business. I shouldn't be reading your mind. I also don't know what you feel like in your body. You know, pain is incredibly subjective. Our thoughts are our own.
Yeah.
We get to have our own private thoughts. We get to have our own private experiences and sensations and feelings. And no matter how hard we might try to describe to somebody else what it feels like to stub our toe, or what it feels like to have an orgasm, or what it feels like to be sad or happy, we don't have the words in, I don't think, any language to really be able to have the other person be melded into our experience. And that's important because what it gives us as a human being is the experience of separation so that we can do a certain amount of work, a certain kind of work, have certain sorts of experiences that we then bring back with us to our soul, our bigger soul, our oversoul, whatever you want to, whatever label you want to give it to it. Yeah. Um, that is unique to being here. And what I also fundamentally believe is that coming into the earth experience is not for the faint of heart, but it's also, I liken it, the allegory or the analogy I use is like, it's like school system.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the soul goes through kindergarten and it goes into middle school and it goes into high school, and then at the end of high school a choice is given to the soul. Do you want to experience humanness? Do you want to have the experience of being human? It's a
Mm-hmm.
choice.
Mm-hmm.
And if the soul says yes, yes, I want this experience, then there's a huge amount of training that that soul has to go through to be ready to
Will
enter
show up.
the physical form. And then however many times that soul chooses to come back into physical form, that's university. That's university, that's graduate school, that's getting your PhD. There's a lot, there's a
Love
lot
that.
to being a human being, and it takes many lifetimes to experience all the different things that are possible. And within the experience of being human, we have these unique traumas that we then come back into the human form, because this is the only place those can be healed.
Yeah.
And not
No,
not every soul gets to go to University Earth.
yeah. I've heard Dolores Cannon, you must have heard her name. She would work with a lot of patients, and she would, well, I don't believe trance is the right way of putting it, but she would be able to speak to them under an altered state, and they would come back and tell her that Earth is one of the hardest schools that you go to. So it sounds akin to what you're sharing. I love that way of putting it, and it resonates with what I've experienced myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So
really.
one of the hardest, but I would change that word. I would say one of the most challenging and one of the most rewarding.
Well, yeah, well, that's always the case, right? Like the harder it is, the more rewarding it is, because now you've accomplished something at a different level.
Well, yes, but I think I remember Sylvia Browne, who she's was an American psychic, and she wrote a lot of books about lots of things. And one of the things she wrote about was past lives, reincarnation, her experiences of talking to people who passed away, all that sort of thing. And
Mhm.
and there was lots that she wrote about that I found fascinating, and that I agreed. But when she said that Earth is the most toxic planet for a soul to live on, and is the
Mhm.
most evil planet for a soul to live on, I stopped reading her books, because I felt like we are seeing things from a very different place. I look at this planet and I see so much beauty and so much potential and possibility and creativity. This is a phenomenal place to come and live. And no, it's not always easy, but like you said earlier, we can bring ease into our experiences of it. And when we start looking at this whole issue around trust, and then the things that happen to us, and we go back to what is illness and why is illness, if
Mhm.
I choose to trust that if something shows up for me as an injury, an illness, or a disease, that there is a meaning,
Yeah,
purpose to it. And
yeah.
the meaning and purpose isn't just to heal something, it's to experience something, to learn something.
So we can actually get excited about something not working for us,
Yeah.
if I put what you're saying differently, right? And yeah, that's one of the realizations I've had. I'm getting two segues from whatever you've shared so far, and I'll
Okay.
present both of them, and let's see where we go from
Okay.
there.
Sure.
One is you spoke about, and all of this I'm saying you spoke about, but it's resonating so deeply because this is all that I believe in. Like I said, um, I'm more articulate when I'm in front of a client. Otherwise, I don't tend to carry the concepts and the memories of everything that I've had as an experience.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it tends to sort of translate into a knowing much more for me, which sort of presents itself at the time needed.
Right.
Uh, I don't know if I'm being able to explain what I'm trying to say
Mm-hmm.
here. So, and that's something that I've created myself in that way on purpose, because I've
Mm-hmm.
seen that being a healer and carrying the memories of both healing externally, and that could be because of my own story and because of everything that I've experienced in my life, and or that could just be my own system, right? My own unique perspective, which is the point that I'm trying to get to through this, is that uh, carrying all the data in my head feels too heavy for me. And
Mm-hmm.
I just want to lay back on the sofa and just relax. So that's why I don't carry all the information, but it shows up. Like right now, it's showing up. And what our conversation is reminding me, the part that you spoke about, where you said that we get to have a very unique, individual, private
Mm-hmm.
experience, private tour of what it feels like to be a soul, basically,
Right.
which in the ether space, it's all one.
Mm-hmm.
And now that you have your unique experience, so the way your experience, the way your, so we're saying it's all one.
Mm-hmm.
So why two of us sitting on two ends of the earth
Mm-hmm.
have similar ways of healing people, but our
Mm-hmm.
literal ways are not the same. Our
Right.
concepts, our belief systems in general are the same. But
Yes.
then as you go deeper and deeper and deeper, you would have a very unique perspective of Megan, the
Mm-hmm.
human. I would
Mm-hmm.
have a very unique perspective of Chetna, the human.
Right.
And now, and because the question does arise to a mind, to a young mind like that I had earlier, the question arises, but then why do any of this? Like, why even create Earth? Why do any of it? And the answer that I have come around to accepting is that then that is the unique perspective experienced through that mind, through that body, through those experiences. And now this is feeding back into the oversoul. This
Yes.
is feeding information back, and the oversoul is growing. And if you've ever heard Esther Hicks or heard her talk anything, have you? If you have, then it resonates so much that we're here for joyous expansion and nothing else. And if the way I look at it, if we individually, Chetna and Megan, we're here for joyous expansion, then I believe the oversoul and eternity and all that it is also always forever here for joyous expansion and nothing else. And that's where the feeding back into the system of our individual perspectives comes to me. And if, because again, these were the questions I was born with in my mind. So what is the purpose? If you're ever wondering what is the purpose, then our purpose is just to have joyous expansion. And there is outcomes, which all of which you may not experience in this lifetime and right here, right now.
Right.
But whatever it is that you're experiencing is also already that outcome in some way.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And in as much as, yes, it is for joyous expansion, it is at the same time, right? So in conjunction, the capacity that we have when we're in these corporeal forms, and by that I mean a physical form, to express our joyous expansion, if you will, through our writing, our architecture, our dance, our food, our civilizations, our
own living.
religions. You know, all of this is the way in which we are bringing our unique Megan experience and Chetna experience to the world, is through that creativity. And then equally, what we see when a person is denied the ability or the opportunity to express themselves creatively, we see the opposite. We see where the human experience becomes very limiting and limited. And the person themselves is not a joyous expression of all that is, but it's rather, they've chosen to be the vessel of that, what we might call negative experience, in order that everything gets to experience everything.
Yeah.
And everyone gets to experience everything.
Shall we put it as, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. Everyone has an opportunity to experience everything. And the receptivity is what will allow that experience to flow into their experience or not. Because if you think about it, you spoke about the documentary Sacred Science. And you said 30 people went into the forest.
So eight people from North America, each with a different typical North American illness. So there was cancer, there was IBS, there was Parkinson's, somebody had alcohol addiction and depression. So varying degrees of severity of disease and varying diseases. And then it was men and women of all different ages and ethnic backgrounds.
Good sample size.
So they were brought to the Peruvian jungle, and they spent 30 days living in the middle of nowhere, no electricity. And they were being cared for by the shamans, by the Peruvian shamans, and those who'd been trained by them. And they were using the medicine of the jungle. They were using the medicine of the rainforest. And it was a fascinating journey to see the different ways in which healing is accepted by the individual or rejected by the individual, regardless of what that healing is and where it comes from. The way in which natural medicines work with the body different than synthetic medicines do, than pharmaceuticals do. And then beyond the physical healing, the cornerstone of shamanic healing is the emotional healing, the energetic healing, the mind healing, the thoughts, healing the patterns, healing the beliefs, or acknowledging them, or just seeing them, right? And coming from the place of nothing is wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. You are manifesting something that's uncomfortable because there's a need in the body for some attention.
That doesn't mean wrong with you. Yeah. Right. Yeah. You're not God's least favorite child because you have.
That's right. That's right. And you know, it's interesting because that comes back to trust. These 8 people put an amazing amount of trust into this experience without an expectation of what the outcome was necessarily going to be. I mean, I'm sure they all hoped that they were going to have miraculous healings, and some of them did, but it was hard work. It wasn't like somebody just snapped their fingers and they went, oh, I'm better. You know, it wasn't like, it wasn't a gospel church healing. It was working through your own experiences, through your own childhood, through your own adulthood, through looking at the beliefs that had become solidified in your mind and calcified in your body.
Mm.
And then seeing how when we have the physical manifestation, looking underneath it to where does it come from, right? So I use the word calcified there right now, okay? When your experiences become calcified in your body, you're holding on to them so tightly, what do you think happens to the physical body? The physical body starts building up plaque in the arteries. Flow is constricted, right? It's a whole branch of medicine and healing that looks at the
and natural healing is blocked.
Like looks at the symbolic nature of the disease or the illness or the injury, and then seeks the story, pulls out the story. Why are you so constricted? You know, who was the overbearing parent, or who was the overbearing spouse, or where did you learn that you are not allowed to express yourself creatively? And how is that showing up as a chronic condition? Because you're not in an expansive, joyous state. Yeah. Yeah, I would recommend anybody to watch that documentary. It was really well done.
I'm definitely going to check it out. Even though there's no disbelief here in the system of jungle medicine, but it just seems interesting to see how these 8 different people responded. You know, what's coming to me now is that, we spoke about illness and disease. We don't have to let it get so bad.
No, we don't.
Before we start to turn around and come into our wholeness, our joyousness, our expression. Because, eventually, whatever words we use, I'm using them from my own personal point of view. You're using them from your own personal point of view. And the listener is listening and filtering it through whatever those words mean for them. But we're really trying to energetically communicate is it doesn't have to become cancer. It doesn't have to become gout even.
Right.
Before you look at your life and say, you know what, I'm here on earth to have a lovely experience, to not have less than, to not struggle, to not suffer. Yes, to heal as and when needed. Yes, to put in the work as and when needed.
Right.
To not make drudgery out of the life that we have. We're not here for that. We're here for real enjoyment at a personal level, and then also to bring that into the connections that we have and we're here for real creation.
Yes.
Rather than just that bit. And if we and that's the message I like to give, and that's the message that's coming through for me again now, is if we're a little conscious and if we're a little more aware, it doesn't have to get that bad before we turn around.
Right. And
that comes back to trust.
Yes, it comes back to trust. And the work that I do, and I'm sure the work that you do too, is about striving to empower our clients to see their own potential, to be in expanded joy, to be in a healed state, to feel wellness. We're not the ones doing the healing.
No,
they are the ones doing the healing, and we're holding that space. That's right. Yeah.
And I tell my clients that I don't want you to be my client forever. We can be friends, we can associate, we can learn from each other. But you're my client forever, that means I'm not doing a good job.
Exactly. Like that's it. Those are the exact words that I use with my clients as well. And it's what I teach my students too. It's don't hang on to your clients. You want that client to leave your space feeling so damn good about themselves, because they're going to go out in the world and they're going to spread that feeling around. It's going to have a ripple effect. And you don't lose a client when a client stops working with you. You open space for the next client to come in.
Yeah. And more importantly, that's completion.
Exactly. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So lovely. I feel like this is a good place to end this episode. Or do you have any wrap up things that you'd like to say?
No, no, actually, I think it's so interesting as you said the word completion.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
we're done. That's it. We
yeah.
said completion.
That's crazy.
There's so much more that, well, I mean, I hope
We can
that
go
we
on
do
for
this
us.
again and again, because I think I know we have so much to share together and to talk about.
And yeah, and
Yeah.
I love hearing the same things that I've discovered come from a different perspective. And like you're so much a senior, and I have so much to learn from you. I'm really grateful for this conversation, and I also feel so excited because you're saying things that I've experienced and I've learned and not learned, but I've realized. I think that's a better word here. And then there is somebody who I have trust for, not because of, oh, I've known her for so many years and she's always done right by me, but just instinctively because I have trust and trust for you. And I'm like, yeah, this is confirmation at a different level, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Well,
I love
one of the things that I wanted to say is that the ninth chakra, I teach on the ninth chakra. And so if you go to my YouTube channel, there's a whole video playlist of the chakra journey. And then there's a whole 2-hour talk that I gave just on the ninth chakra. So if people
so,
are interested to learn more, yeah.
yeah, I definitely am. What's your YouTube handle? And maybe
Megan,
we'll put it down in the description box, both of our handles.
yes, yeah. We'll put all those links, and if you've got links as well, you let me know, and we'll put them in there too. But it's Megan Edge Healing, or if you go to my website, which is megan.ca, there's a whole page there of my world on YouTube, and so it just takes people right into all of the teachings, all of my teachings that I've done for the
All
last
of the work
15 years, 20 years, 30 years.
So we'll put all the links and all the descriptions in the box below.
Yes.
And they say it. And yeah, I would also invite people to write in their comments and leave us their questions, because I definitely feel like we're going to do another episode together.
Yes.
And I'd love to keep chatting and share this information in the world. It's not about getting a lot of people to watch it. Of course, if they watch it and they learn from it, there's nothing like that.
Right.
But it's more about just putting out the energy of and confirming back to the oversoul that yes, we've received your message and this works, and bringing more natural healing rather than band-aid healing.
Yes. Yeah. Because when we are well, the world is well. I believe.
So I agree with you.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, when I'm happy and I step out, everything in nature looks brighter. Everything in nature looks brighter. And then I'm sad and everything looks sad. So I agree with you. It's our perspective that creates our story.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. So with that, I would like to invite the audiences to think about that your perspective is the story. Your story is how you see the world. If you don't love the way you're seeing the world, or you don't love the way you're showing up in the world, you don't like how your life is going, then you need to change your story. And you're the only one who can do that. No one can.
And you have the power.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right, Megan.
Excellent. All right. We will see each other again soon.
Yeah.
Perfect.